A few years ago, I woke up to find the company bank account empty. Not low, not overdrawn, just empty. And the man I started the company with, my so-called business partner, well, he was gone too. Didn't pick up the phone, didn't respond to emails, simply disappeared. Now, you'd think that kind of disaster comes with certain red flags, but there weren't any because I didn't actually look for them. I didn't ask the right questions. In fact, I didn't ask any real questions in the first place. I hired someone I liked, someone who felt familiar, someone I felt comfortable with, someone I trusted based on my gut. But I never stopped to ask, how does this person operate? How do they operate under pressure? What does success actually look like to them? And is it the same as it looks like to me? Can I rely on him when things go wrong? I didn't ask those questions because I didn't know I should. And because of that, I made a mistake. A very expensive mistake. That's when I also learned something that's shaped every decision I've made since. Better choices start with better questions. And I don't just mean business choices or business partnerships. We see this absolutely everywhere. In hiring, in relationships, in leadership. We assume instincts are enough. We rely on likability, on comfort, on gut feel, on pattern recognition. But those aren't actually strategies, they're shortcuts. That experience also taught me something uncomfortable. It wasn't just a one-off mistake, it was actually a pattern, and it wasn't just mine. Because whether we're choosing a co-founder, a partner, a new hire, most of us aren't actually choosing at all. We're guessing, dressing up instinct as insight, and calling it, well, good judgment. And there is plenty of science to back this up. A study from Harvard found that we form first impressions in just 7 seconds. And then instead of actually challenging what we see, we spend the rest of the conversation subconsciously confirming what we think we already know. Not learning, not discovering, just reinforcing our own assumptions, feeding our own biases. And nowhere is that more evident than in hiring. We meet someone, like their energy, connect over a shared interest, and boom, decision made. But how good are those decisions really? Well, one of the most respected hiring studies ever performed by Schmidt and Hunter looked at 85 years of research, and they found this. Unstructured interviews, the kind most managers still use today, are only slightly better at predicting success than flipping a coin. 50-50. That's your odds of getting it right. And yet, we keep trusting those odds again and again. Now, let's fast forward to today. We've added AI into the mix, and instead of actually fixing the problem, we've multiplied it, even amplified it. Take Workday, for example. Their AI-driven hiring system started rejecting applicants over the age of 40 without any human ever reviewing those applications, impacting hundreds, if not thousands of people. Why? Well, because their hiring tool was trained on our own human flaws and mental shortcuts. That's not an AI problem. That's a human problem, a question problem. We gave the AI the wrong inputs and we got the wrong outcomes at scale. And because AI doesn't invent logic, it inherits it. It runs with the rules we give it. And if we haven't defined the right questions, the system just replicates our habits, or what it has learned on Reddit. Just faster, louder, and a hell of a lot more confident. And it all comes back to this. We've been asking the wrong questions. We've been asking them the wrong way. And sometimes we've not been asking them at all. We've grown lazy. We've defaulted to scripts. We rely on gut feel, or we outsource the thinking to systems we barely understand. But if we want better decisions in business, in leadership, in life, in anything really, we have to reclaim the art of asking better questions. And here's the good news. Asking better questions isn't a talent. It's a choice. It's a discipline. And like any discipline, it can be learned by anyone willing to slow down and think with intent. We don't need to guess. We don't need to rely on recycled questions. We can actually design our own questions with clarity and purpose. The fact is that the best leaders, the best founders, the best partners I've worked with aren't the ones with perfect instincts. They're the ones who've learned to pause and ask, what am I really trying to understand here? What signal am I listening for? And what question will give me the clearest, most honest answer? And that's where everything changes. When we stop treating questions as conversation fillers and actually start using them as precision tools. So how do we do that? Well, it starts with 3 deceptively simple steps. Define, design, decide. And how do we define? Well, we start with the outcome, not the role. Before you ask a single question, ask yourself this: what is this person actually here to achieve? Are they meant to scale a product, lead a team through uncertainty, build trust across silos, hold the relationship steady when life gets hard? Whether it's a new hire, a leadership decision, or a relationship, start with the outcome. 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, even 24 months from now, what does success look like, and what behaviors will drive it? Most bad decisions start with vagueness. In hiring, we list bullet points: strong communicator, team player, 5+ years of experience. What does that even mean in our context? In relationships, we look for chemistry or shared interests, but none of that means anything if you don't know what you actually need. If you don't define success clearly, you're not hiring, you're hoping. You're not building a team, you're assembling a lottery ticket. Once we have actually defined success, we can then actually go and design our questions. Questions that reveal how someone thinks, how they behave, how they operate, not just what they've done or what skills they bring. This is where real insight begins. Most of the questions we ask in interviews, in meetings, in life, they're not even questions, they're just rituals. They invite performance, not reflection. Tell me about yourself. What's your biggest weakness? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Now think about dating. What do you like to do on weekends? What's your favorite travel destination? We ask for preferences, not principles. We gather trivia, not truth. A good question isn't about being clever. It's about surfacing something that's real, something that matters, a real signal we can base a decision on. So before you ask, take a pause and consider, what do I actually want to understand? What is it that I'm actually after? What's the behavior that will reveal that? And how can I ask a question that makes it visible? Now, let's bring this to life. We said earlier, what's your biggest weakness? Well, instead of asking that, try this. Tell me about a piece of feedback that changed how you work. What was hard about it? And what did you do differently afterwards? Or instead of, where do you see yourself in 5 years? If you were in my role, what would you focus on first and why? Or instead of asking your partner, are you okay? Try, what do you need right now that you're not getting? Now, these questions aren't tricks. They're tools. They surface evidence. They reveal how someone sees, decides, reacts, or what they need. When you ask better questions, you don't just get better answers, you get better alignment. Only then can we truly turn insight into action and decide. This is where all comes together, or well, falls apart. You've had the conversation, you've asked better questions. Now what? This is where most people slide back into instinct. In hiring, wow, she just felt right. I liked his energy. Something about them stood out. In life, I just had a good feeling. Oh, we're into the same things. Now, that's not a decision, that's a vibe check. But when you've defined outcomes and designed questions with intent, you can actually compare based on what matters. Not likability, not confidence, not who follows up with a nice email, but behaviors, patterns, evidence, facts. This is where structure matters. This is where frameworks like STAR and PARLA come in. And no, they're not robotic, they're liberating. They give our questions depth. They give our follow-ups power. STAR looks at situation, task, action, results, and it reveals not just what someone did, but how things evolved and what changed as a result. PARLA goes further, looks at problem, action, result, learning, and application. It shows how someone grows. It reveals whether they're evolving, adapting, or, well, repeating. This isn't about hiring anymore. It's about how you evaluate any high-stakes decision. Who you work, who you choose, who you build with, who you trust. When you use better structure, you don't just make better decisions. You build better systems for thinking. That's the shift. Not more questions, but better questions. Because better questions lead to clarity. Well, clarity drives better outcomes. In hiring, in leadership, in life. In every moment where a decision shapes a future. What you ask defines what you see. So before your next big choice, take a pause and ask, what am I really trying to uncover? What matters most in this decision? And what question will reveal the truth, the evidence that I need? This is the lesson I learned from my former business partner. It's not the answers that fail us, it's the questions we never thought to ask. So if you take just one thing away from this video, let it be this. Better outcomes start with better questions. Not better instincts, not faster tech, not more data, just better questions. A single well-placed question can change a trajectory. It can prevent the hire that breaks the team. It can surface the doubt no one voiced. It can reveal a truth you didn't know you needed. So ask them with care, ask them with clarity, but above all, ask them. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, check out the next one.